Evening, everybody. Matt Geary here for the Geek Pride cast on this Sunday evening. With me tonight, we have a guest, which is great, but we'll get to him shortly. With us, we have some usual faces. We have Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
And Mark Canty.
The Mark from the pit.
And our special guest tonight, CC Adams.
Evening, people, everybody.
Right, so CC, who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am a London native, born and raised in the capital and proud of. I write mostly horror fiction, some dark fiction, and as much as I love the city that I'm born and raised in and still live in, most of my work is based in and around London. And given the breadth and scope of the city, whether it's food, whether it's scenery, whether it's entertainment, culture, cultural diversity, and all the rest of it, this is why I always try and bring London to life in my work as a character, like the protagonist and the antagonist. I'm just proud to call it home.
Yeah, I mean, you are incredibly prolific. You're not just a writer, you just write all the time. You're an absolute machine when it comes to writing. It's sickening, absolutely. And I mean, I just love the fact, like you say, London is such a well-described character. I mean, there's some books where describe London and you're thinking, no, that doesn't ring true. I mean, I've done it myself one time. I think when you did a proofread of one of my stories, you kind of picked up the fact of, if you drive, the only way you get a certain view is if you're actually driving down the Thames. And I think you really bring that embedded element of being in London and living and breathing it really to the fore of your writing.
Definitely. It is, I suppose, with how many years of experience of not only living in the city, but going out in the city, various areas. I mean, I live in Southwest, which is an area called Tooting, which is halfway between Clapham and Wimbledon. There are various places in and around London that I have been to and would have been to. So it doesn't matter whether I'm traveling on the Northern Line, also known as the Misery Line to the natives.
It's black for a reason. It's the colour of depression, isn't it? You get on those trains.
It is, and I was actually refreshing my memory on this only recently. In fact, I believe it was originally called the Misery Line because I'm not sure whether legacy is the right word, but those trains were old. So when you had lines like, I suppose, the Circle Line and the Victoria Line had the modern-looking trains. The trains on the Northern Line, the Misery Line, those were the trains that were the old, grey, shabby ones. And I think even the flooring was the slatted wood kind of effect.
Yeah.
This was probably from around the time that there was a King's Cross fire. Long story short, those trains were old. So I can write about time spent doing a commute on some parts of London Underground. When I'd first started buying Kangol hats, which I still wear, I'd gone up to Camden Market and those kind of shops around there. The Jazz Cafe, which is also in Camden, is a place I've been to when I've had friends visit from out of town and I want to take them around London. I don't want to do the touristy stuff like but taking them to places like the Shard, maybe take them up to Canary Wharf and see the Plaza and where Smolenski's used to be and that kind of stuff. And as Peter Mark May had once said, you can always tell when CC has written something because in his work there are people eating. And one of the great things about the capital is the range of food and restaurants you get beyond the likes of Chinese or Indian, if you like, for your bog standard takeaways, if there's such a thing. You get your Lebanese, your Persian, your Afghan, your Japanese, your Brazilian barbecue. You used to get Mongolian barbecue a few boroughs from me, a few tube stops rather. So yeah, long story short, having been all over London and experienced that much of it, I would be doing it a great injustice if I did not bring this shit to life.
Yeah. I mean, what you said about the food is spot on. I mean, I love Chinese food. And way back when I was doing Shaolin Kung Fu, one Chinese a year, the Sifu, the teacher of the school, basically hired a bus for us all to go down to London and visit Chinatown on the Chinese New Year. And he introduced us to his teacher. And basically, he was Sifu Yap Liu. And what was great was he took us all out for a meal. Not to all the kind of touristy Chinese, but the real, genuine, proper Chinese restaurant, and that was absolutely indescribable. It was unlike anything else I'd
The thing
ever
is, you
eaten.
do get that because I've got a lot of Chinese, sort of British-born Chinese friends in Manchester, loads of them, and every there used to be, it's not here anymore, which is a shame. There's a place called Quackman's near the town hall in Manchester, and our friend Tony Wong would always bring us there at the end of a night. And it was like, we would get they would come out and they would see a bunch of white guys and they would just sort of like come out with the normal sort of like, English menus that you would get. And then my mate Tony would go, no, we'll have the Chinese menus. And you get the Chinese menus and you'd have the food was so good. And I cannot find it anywhere else now.
Yeah.
It's just so good. And it's authentic Chinese food. None of this, not the stuff that you get. I'm like, oh my god, my girlfriend's now banging at the door. She doesn't bring keys. You carry on for a moment.
Yeah, basically, it
it's
seems like
my boss
sorry.
is Indian, and when we go out and do stuff for business, and he'll take us out somewhere, he's like, we have to go here, we have to go there. I'm ordering.
I'm
And
back.
just like pile stuff on. And a couple of years back, they sent me over to Ahmedabad to visit our office over there. And so I was there for a week, and every night I got taken somewhere different. And every night food just got pushed at me. Try this, it's good. You're right, it is good. It looks weird, but it is good. I haven't got a clue what half of it was.
I had there was always this sort of it's what they called, it was called like this is a really weird sort of conversation, but it was like it was called football. They call it football rice, and basically what it was sort of like fried rice with like Chinese sausage and like mange tout and stuff like that. But it was covered in like an egg, and it kind of looked like a football. And I loved that stuff, man. I loved it. I can't find it anywhere, and I'm gutted because I love it. It's so nice, so nice.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, CC. So we jump in tracks here a bit. It was like, you're a horror writer, dark fantasy horror. But you do not watch modern horror films.
I do know, which is something that's been met with everything from, I suppose, to surprise to straight out derision. One of my closest friends, my sister from another mister, this actually came up in Toronto a couple of years or so ago, because she actually lives in Toronto. When I get out there in the summer for Fan Expo, amongst other things, Fan Expo is like the Canadian equivalent of Comic-Con, to put it in the simplest terms. So among other things, when we hang out, we go to Fan Expo. And I think at this point she had mentioned going to a particular panel or viewing or some such at Fan Expo. And I said, no, we can't do that. She's like, why not? Because it's horror. Yeah, so I don't watch horror. No, I don't watch horror. Seriously? Yeah, seriously. And she gave me a look as if to say, are you full of shit? and just to see the sheer surprise and derision on her face. in all the years I've known her, there's only been about 3 times I've seen her expression change from something which is all sweetness and light. The first time was because I've known her for about, I can't do the count, but since 2005, so about 15 years. But anyway, This was more like maybe some 10 or so years ago. And the group of us who had met up in Toronto, we had done the Marmite experiment, because apparently Marmite isn't as much of a thing over there as it would be here. So her being intrigued and wanting to try this shit out, she has done just that. And the look on her face when she'd actually tried Marmite, the best way to describe was mortified.
Yeah, that's so fun.
I know you either love it or you hate it. Like when in Friends and not Phoebe, sorry, where Monica has made these brownies with mock chocolate or chocolate, and Rachel comes out with a line, "I can't believe it. Is it that good? No, I can't believe you let me put this thing in my mouth." And then oh, this must be what evil tastes like. That mortified is the look that my friend had on her face. The other time was this is actually relatively recent, from a couple of years back. We had been to see at Fan Expo, in fact, we'd been to see a panel with an actor called Wallace Shawn, who, among other things, I believe was not only in The Princess Bride, he was in Young Sheldon, and one of those actors with, they're not necessarily, I suppose, marquee value actors, if there's such a thing, but he's got a long and somewhat varied and impressive body of work. But
inconceivable.
Yes.
Inconceivable.
He did Rex in Toy Story, didn't he?
Did he?
Apparently so.
Oh, okay.
I seem to recall his name from somewhere. Something to do with Rex.
I cannot remember Toy Story, but again, given how much longevity the man has, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's true.
He's in this where he's to give a talk on his body of work, and at some point the audience get to ask questions. But in an hour slot, the moderator had fucked it all up, was talking about this, that, and the third, and some obscure theater production the man had been in. And as a result, there was only about 10 minutes left at the end for everyone to ask questions. And looking over at said friend who looked at me as if to say, "You full of shit," when I told her I don't watch horror, to see the look on her face, she's looking at the moderator like, "Get the fuck out." Now, she would never say it, but to see the look on her face like,
oh yeah.
So in all the 15 years or so I've known her, those are the 3 times where I've caught that look from her, and one time it was aimed directly at me, and I don't want to have it to that shit. But to bring that shit back on topic, no, I don't watch horror anymore. I've grown up watching stuff like Rabid, Scanners, and American Werewolf in London, The Evil Dead, The Kindred, Poltergeist.
The Stuff, have you ever seen that?
The yogurt one? Oh man, put me off yogurt for years.
Oh god, yeah, that's classic.
I don't think I have.
Oh man.
There's been, for all the films that I reeled off the names of that I can remember, there are some that I probably can't. Monkey Shines, for example, a chimp with a straight razor. That's one that's just come to mind. But,
wow.
That's not one that usually comes to the forefront when people ask about horror films from way back. But yeah, to answer your question, I've seen a fair amount of horror films which have now damaged me to that point where I can't watch them anymore. I know some people watch horror films and they like the scares, but for me, it is not. It is not an enjoyable experience to feel that chest tightening sensation, that sense of dread that someone's going to go freaky eyed, or someone's going to have a mouthful of fangs, or in the case of The Fly with Seth Brundle, his eyes slop out of his head. And when I saw that, I was that close to passing out, really.
Yeah.
And if I didn't run from time, I would have. So
I understand that, because I don't mind the odd horror film now and again, but I will never actively seek out to watch a horror film because like I have a very vivid imagination and I have nightmares and stuff like that, so I just don't bother. I am like, what takes the edge, and what will take the edge off watching horror films is maybe get yourself another half who is super scared of horror films, and then it takes the edge off it, because my girlfriend literally cannot watch even like scary things in comedy shows without freaking out, and it's hilarious, and it sort of takes the edge off the entire thing, and that's what I do.
Not quite as bad as my wife, but similar, yeah.
But I think you're a bit like me, Cece, in that you like the mashups. You like kind of sci-fi horror, like Alien and Aliens, and where it's not the sole focus, but more it's an element of the overall experience of the film.
I mean, I like the element in terms of horror stories. I like the stories. I would gladly read more of them if I wasn't writing so often.
Yeah.
But see, this apologies if this is a digression, but from an early age, when I got to the point after watching how many horror films from the likes of David Cronenberg and Tobe and those kinds of people, when I got to the stage that I couldn't watch horror films anymore, I still was fiending for that narrative. So what my oldest brother, I'm the youngest of 3 sons, no sisters, is my oldest brother who damaged me and bringing all the horror films into the house. What he would then do, he would actually tell me this is what happens in the film, and the film is about this, and this happens, and this happens, and then this happens, because I still want to get in on the story, but I can't watch it because it's such an unsettling experience. So he would tell me the story. And this is why, for how I write now, the way that I outline my work, the way that I do a synopsis, is very much like if you went to Wikipedia for a particular film, say for the sake of argument, Insidious, and you were to read under plot on the Wikipedia page for Insidious, the same way that the plot is laid out is the same way that I write a synopsis, because from an early age, the way that the story is described to me is what will engage me. So that is how I write. So I can't necessarily watch horror because of how it's presented on screen. It's still disturbing. But where some people have an issue with reading horror, because it's your imagination, and your imagination gets the better of you, and you don't know what's going to do all the rest of it. I'm not one of them.
Yep.
That's
I
fair.
read horror books, and I suppose, like a lot of things, you not to denigrate people, you get some at one end of the scale which are really bad. At the other end of the scale, you get some which are really good. And some come in flavors different to the others. Some might be more gross out, some might be more visceral, some might be more subtle, some might be more quiet horror, and all the rest of it. But for all the books I've read, there is only one that truly made my skin crawl. It is one of my favorite horror books, and that being said, it doesn't stop me from reading it again and again. I have that level of comfort with a book. I do not have that level of comfort with anything on screen that I can physically see. It's not a pleasant experience, so I just watch them anymore.
So what was that book? Sorry.
What is that book? It is Joe Donnelly. And this is another story behind this story. There's, I think I might have mentioned this to you a while back, I can't remember. The novel by Ray Russell, Incubus, if you've ever read that or heard of that, or the film.
I know of it. I know of it.
Because this was one of the books I read when I was that much small. Again, my oldest brother damaged me in this sense. So the same way he would bring in, back then it wasn't DVDs, it was VHS. You bring videotapes into the house. When you rent films, I don't think Blockbuster was even a thing back then. Blockbuster, where are you now? And it would be a 2-day rental, and I think at some point he might have brought the Incubus video into the house. He certainly brought the book. But there, you can't remember any and everything from childhood. So some years down the line, when I'm older and I start earning my own money, I think, I remember this book called Incubus, and this was really great, so I want to get this book. But when I look on the likes of Amazon, I've seen Incubus by Joe Donnelly, and it's not this one. But this book has the tagline, "What kind of baby would steal a mother?" Yes. Yeah. So I I thought that one, and again, it is the only book I have read to date that has made my skin crawl. There is a scene in Stephen King's Needful Things which has made my skin crawl.
Yeah.
But I think that's the scene where a boy's brother commits suicide and something leaks out the back of his head and it's not right. I thought, that's just some weird shit. But in terms of incubus and what kind of baby would steal a mother, it is a masterclass in pace and dread. And for the skin crawling element, there are some books where, for better or worse, they have the pacing and the setting down, but there might not be, if you like, so much substance to them. It's the atmosphere. The answer to the question, what kind of baby steals a mother? It's some nasty shit. So yeah, it is, I don't avidly or so strongly recommend a lot of works, whether it's novels or TV shows or films, but this one, yes. So this has informed the way I write in terms of setting, in terms of pace, in terms of the slow burn. Definitely, it is. Yeah, hell of a book.
Do you ever scare yourself with your own? Do you sort of get yourself into a zone where you're like you're writing something and then you just find yourself freaking out because you're like, all right, okay, I need to get out of my own head now?
It has happened. I generally write whenever I get a quiet moment during the day, in terms of quiet in the household and quiet in the neighborhood, and because of how the house is located on the street, like near the corner. I don't know, that's why every once in a while there are people outside who just hang around those street corners and smoke or talk about this, that, and the third. And in one instance, I think there was a couple standing outside in the rain talking. I'm thinking, it's raining. Why fuck off somebody? I kind of take my shots wherever I can when I get that semblance of peace and quiet. The good thing, and I suppose the bad thing about writing at night, as I'm often wont to do, is when the house is quiet and the neighborhood is quiet, the night brings that clarity to things that ordinarily just sit in the background and you gloss over them. So when you're writing alone at night and you can hear maybe the occasional passage of a vehicle and you can hear a fox barking maybe a street away, and given that this is not the newest house in the world, there might be wind which will rattle the windows in the frame and the odd creaking of the house and and that kind of stuff. So the night amplifies those nuances. So there are those occasions when I think, oh, this is some creepy shit. And just like someone in the horror film, I would look over my shoulder, even though I know I'm the only person in the room. I look over my shoulder, well, I'm writing some weird shit. It just be weird or a real head trip if I look around and there's something there that really should not be there. But so yeah, to answer that question, I don't necessarily freak myself out as such from what I write, but there are those instances where, again, especially at night, those nuances are a lot clearer. They're a lot sharper, and it's the kind of thing to feed back into the work. So yeah, definitely.
That's true.
Got a load of comments from Josh on YouTube. He just says, "I'm sorry for the spam comments. I did all my housework and I'm lonely." Well, if you're lonely, Josh, why aren't you on the bloody podcast? You bloody you dingus. It's slightly on topic. Well, it is on topic, but you don't watch horror films. But if I can recommend a film to watch, which is, it's not really horror because there's it is and it isn't, but it's called it's called Ghost Stories, yeah, and it's by the guy. I forgot his name. Is it Nye? No, Blood, I can't remember. He basically does the stage show for Darren Brown, and he is one of the League of Gentlemen, but he's not the guy. He's the guy who writes it. He doesn't sort of do the acting and stuff. And it's basically about a skeptic who there was a play about it actually. It's about a skeptic who goes on to sort of investigate these 3 ghost stories, and it's these guys telling him about these ghost stories, and it has one of the best twists at the end, and I think it is a genius film, absolutely genius. And it's horror, but it's not, so it's scary, but there's a lot of underlying sort of stuff that links in together and gets tied up at the end, and I think it's really, if you like sort of kind of mashup type stuff, you might like it. So good, so good.
Yeah, speaking of mashups, it was Aliens that we first started talking about. And I have to get the story in because it's on point, and I'm wearing my Nostromo top for a reason, because it's this bastard that made me watch Alien Covenant. I love the Aliens films. They are master. Sorry.
Remember, when you start this, you have to start with the honest truth.
I will. Yes, I'd watched all the Aliens films, and I'd seen Alien Covenant, Alien Prometheus, and thought it was terrible. Rightly so.
I didn't think it was terrible. I think it was watchable.
For an Aliens film, it was terrible, and the stupidity. And then I thought, I'm not going to watch Alien Covenant because I just like so. But I shared the honest trailers with CC Adams here, and he's cracked up, especially with the line of "so much flute, so much flute," and he said, "No, you got to watch it," and I did, and I've not forgiven him since. Just the stupidity of the writing and what the characters do is just. Like, yes, I'm going to do what you say, the psychotic Andrew says, and stick my head in the egg that's just opened up. Yes. Or how come the ship's scanners never actually picked up the gigantic floating city? But yes, it's because of CC Adams. I watched and bought. I bought the film.
Oh,
I didn't buy it. I bought it, watched it, and I've still not got my own back.
Like I've watched it once to be honest, but I didn't hate it. I thought it, I thought it was better than Prometheus. I thought it added to the story. And yeah, again, Prometheus I didn't hate either. I thought Covenant was a lot better. But yeah, I didn't think it was bad. It didn't.
It's all about the Wayland Corporation and how they are, generally, positive but absolutely useless. Their hiring policy must have been abysmal. Utani Corporation come along and basically buy them up. And then Utani is, from what we can make out, at least competent but fundamentally evil. Wayland Corporation haven't got a clue. I mean, just the writing starts just makes like, why are you doing that? Like, again, we go back to the David android who has gone psychotic, and everyone's just doing what he says because they're absolutely gullible. Like, oh, what's that egg? Oh, I just have to take a look at it. Okay. And the actor who played the captain in Covenant, he had to do that scene about 5 times because every time it happened, the guy kept cracking up because he knew what was coming. And I think, if you're doing that, what's all the voice going to be doing? Like, yeah, we know it's coming. Why are you doing that? So yes.
So, Cece, what do you think of Covenant? You made him watch it. Did you make him watch it because you knew it was bad, or did you enjoy it?
You hate me.
I didn't make him watch it, but I can't remember how this actually came about. He had shown me this the Honest trailer for Alien Covenant. Honest Trailers is a YouTube channel, the likes of How It Should Have Ended, which is like a cartoon interpretation of the big Hollywood blockbusters, which I like. He's shown me the Honest trailer for Alien Covenant. I'd already seen Alien Covenant by this point, so I've got context for the Honest trailer. And if you haven't seen it, I would suggest watch the whole thing. The honest trailer for Alien Covenant is hilarious. The other one that I love, which you know, is the one for Predator, and he's all out of chewing gum. But I come back to that one. So, in the honest trailer for Alien Covenant, they make fun of the flute scene between David and Walter. This is a long flute sequence. Seriously, so much flute, and it's the way that they say it. He said it, and he goes on with it. I remember watching this, and I just pissed myself. I wept. So when Pete's actually showed me this thing, I said, "But this is true. They're not shitting you. This is how the flute is. You should see it." And that's how it came about. So he eventually caves, and he's seen it. And I remember at some point, somewhere down the line, it was something like "CC, you bastard," or it was
succinct, brief and to the point. Succinct, CC, you bastard.
I don't think the film was so terrible. There have been films that I really could not stomach, and I just think this is true. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of them. Yes, I know I'm wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was dreadful. Shitty film. I generally don't rate films that highly, but for me, there was enough in Alien Covenant that even if I couldn't sit down and fully engage from beginning to end, there is enough, for example, like the flute scene, because now I've got context from the honest trailer. I've also got context for the alien at the end, where in the honest trailer it says it's like seeing Batman at the beach. You see an alien in broad daylight. It's something's just undone. Mm-hmm. And there are things in a film on DVD that I can fast forward and rewind and pick out this part, pick out that part. Again, I don't think it is so bad, but it is not so great either. But this is coming from me. So again, I don't rate a whole lot of films highly as a rule. I know the good man Pete, with his love of mashups, and certainly the sci-fi realm of the alien lore, I can imagine what a deal breaker is going to be. All right, fine, I'll watch this alien film. Why did I watch this alien film? This alien film is terrible. So yes, it's probably more of a thorn in the side for you in terms of that's a couple of hours you'll just never get back.
Yeah.
So you're a harsh mistress when it comes to sort of your reviews. What is the film or the films that sort of you go, yeah, that was amazing, that was awesome, I really enjoyed that?
I'd say off the top of my head, John Carpenter's The Thing, which is my favorite film of all time. In any genre, I give a 9 out of 10. I don't know any film is going to be so perfect that I could give it a 10. Limitless is another film I love. That's an 8 out of
Limitless,
That's Bradley Cooper, Abby Cornish, I think, and Robert De Niro, which, if memory serves, is based on a novella.
Okay. The series was pretty good before they cancelled it, which was a shame.
Yeah.
From what I saw of the series, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
They actually tried to do what they did in the film, rather than trying to do a cookie cutter script with a few bits and pieces referencing. They actually tried to bleed off the film and go forward.
Yeah.
I think that's what worked for it.
I believe Bradley Cooper has a role in it as a senator who had an agenda.
But he was the same guy, but he'd become a senator.
Yeah. I think he might have produced it, actually. That's why he's sort of in it.
Yeah, I think he pops in here and there, but he was still connected. But it was like moving forward rather than just sort of Monster of the Week or a police procedural with a few bits and pieces bolted on with gaffer tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you watched Dog Soldiers by any chance?
Oh, I love Dog Soldiers.
Because I think that's a horror film, but also, well, it's
black.
It's a soldier movie with werewolves rather than a werewolf movie with soldiers. But it's just they really write the soldiers incredibly well. And I've known a few squaddies who've said yeah, that's how we would react at each different scene. With seafood, they eat it because you don't know when you're going to eat again,
Yeah.
and it's all about their own kind of. You look out for your mates, your buddies. Everyone else comes second.
I hope it gives you the fucking shits. I love that bit.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of thing I would make a beeline for, because elements of horror and they're werewolves. And I always thought, for all the, if you like, the classic movie monsters, as it were, werewolves were some of the ugliest things you could see. Not necessarily the end creature, as much as I don't like dogs. Maybe that's part of it. Freud could tell me. But how the, if you like, the elements of the character, there is that something savage underneath the surface, and when they get to that point, there's usually some clothing ripping, and this bulges and this comes out, and there's blood, and the A to B is just ugly, and it's a hideous and horrific thing to see. But a couple of scenes in Dog Soldiers. One is the piss off, they won't, that's an order. I like that line, and how his intestines didn't fit back. And the other one where there's a clawed and hairy arm that is swiping around in a vehicle. So I've not seen any monsters up close because I am a wuss.
Dog Soldiers has like almost takes the Jaws approach, where you only see little bits and glimpses of it because they're werewolf suits with naff. So it's all focused on the soldiers and how they're reacting in each situation.
But that makes it so much better in movies.
Yeah, exactly.
If you never show them, people do the hard work for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend 12 grand on a monster suit, because the person that's got this stuck in their head, those little bits, they're going to do 250, 300,000 pounds worth of work for you, all in their head. And it's going to be different for every single person. So no one person's ever going to be immune to it, because they're all going to be fucked up in different ways.
Yeah, but it's like that scene you mentioned of like the claw in the vehicle. The soldier just wants to shiv it, and basically just like stabbing it, and like, okay, it's a werewolf, but it's not.
But the thing is, because it's quintessentially a British horror film, and you can tell a difference between a British horror film and an American one, because there's a lot of comedy in it as well. So there's a lot of sort of there's horror, but there's that sort of kind of, especially in Dog Soldiers, that squatty humor that sort of takes the edge off it ever so slightly and makes it sort of a lot more palatable. Again, I'm a wuss for horror films as well, but I enjoyed it. I think
one of my favourite lines is Sean Pertwee's like, right, we are up against live hostile enemy targets. Right, so if Red Riding Hood comes up to you with a bazooka and a bad attitude, I expect you to chin the bitch. It's just like, just the way it rolls out, and yes,
Sean Pertwee does not get enough acknowledgement for how
Sean
much
Pertwee
fun he is on film.
He was fantastic in Event Horizon.
Yeah,
that is really intense horror. That is really intense horror.
I've only ever watched that once in the cinema. I've never ever been willing to watch it again. And friends want me to go and sing that.
99, wasn't it? I went to see it in 99, and I don't think I ever...
97? No, sorry, 97.
Oh, was it 97? I remember I never watched it again, because it was just like, it was the freakiest... Like, I've seen... It really...
Sam Neill in that film.
Really fucked me up.
Sam Neill in that film actually gave me nightmares for a couple of days.
Yeah, man. It's just...
Watch it, see, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it's
I warn you, young man.
Oh, the pinhead bit's the best, isn't it? Though?
Yeah, it's like that film is like a lot of like horror films, especially the older ones. You kind of go back and you're just like, oh, it's not as bad. It's a bit tame. Event Horizon still messes with me and stuff. It's just
that was the perfect thing though. It was on the right place.
Yeah,
and they just used the tools they had. They used so well.
Yeah.
That it didn't age in the way some do.
Yeah.
Some of the films where they used CGI because it was cheaper. But oh god, no! Why did you do that? Or they used really tacky miniatures or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's schlocky and fun, like Robot Jocks. That ages well because it's such a little laugh. But then there's others where it does not age well. The effects are kind of giving themselves away. There's one newer film I've been meaning to watch that I haven't got around to yet called The Owners, Have you seen about that? Sylvester McCoy.
No.
No.
It's a low budget one. It looks quite interesting. It's a bunch of kids try and break into an old couple's house looking for drugs because apparently he was a doctor or something, and then it becomes who's locked in trapped in the house with who.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That looks like fun because I've just seen the trailer, and Sylvester McCoy being creepy is just worth it for the whole thing all on its own.
Well, Sylvester McCoy was creepy when back in the Doctor in the
he was
90s.
He was my first Doctor.
Yeah, he was my doctor when I.
Oh god, yeah. I actually almost bumped into him very briefly a couple of years back. We were in New York on our honeymoon for Thanksgiving, and we went to Grand Central Terminal, and we were sitting there, we were looking around. We walked out, and I was looking at Facebook, and he just checked in there with a picture from 150 yards to our right. Literally, he'd just gone and taken a picture and gone and got on the trains. We'd gone in, had a nosy around, and walked out.
Sylvester McCoy is a genuinely lovely man. I interviewed him for SFX magazine a few years ago at Sci-Fi Weekend in the city, and basically I was in the green room with Sylvester McCoy and Greg McTavish, who was asleep on the couch, and we just had a half-hour chat just about the Doctor and his approach to it, and he's just such he's so much time for his fans, which basically, at the time, my goddaughters were having a really horrific time. Their mum had been through a lot of shit, just health-wise, and they just wanted something to cheer up. So I led the youngest, who was really into Doctor Who, and said let's go and meet the Doctor. So I led her down to the Q&A, and said, okay, So initially, he turned to me so what's your question? Don't know. How are you? And then it's like, Doctor, this is for you. And so she goes up to him what was your favorite time? What was your best bit about being the Doctor? And Sylvester McCoy turned to him and goes, meeting you. Oh, I was just oh. And she just came with huge grin on her face afterwards. And I thought, okay, that's my little bit done to help out a bit. But yeah, I mean, he's such a lovely man, and who's always got time for his hand. And he's just a natural raconteur, and just always kind of ends on a positive note. So yeah, actually, obviously you are a Spider-Man T-shirt. So Spider-Man T-shirt, Spider-Man fan. Sorry, where that's a T-shirt. Yeah, stop laughing. So, have you been watching the Marvel films?
Yes. As much as I watch the Marvel films, maybe I'm a purist when it comes to the source material, but very rarely have I found the films measure up to the source material. And I know some will make the argument it's not the same kind of thing. I'm aware of that, but generally I find they don't measure up. Only two instances as a whole for me have measured up. One is the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, which is brilliant. It is brilliant. It's hilarious. That's a whole other conversation, to be honest, but suffice it to say that so much of it is sharp and on point. The characterization is sharp. The casting is on point. The dialogue is razor sharp. The fight scenes are involved, original and brilliant, and it pays homage to the source material and the Raimi films, and I think maybe even the Mark Webb films. The other instance for me was in Captain America Civil War, where the web slinger in the MCU. You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude. that kind of stuff. The classic Spidey, as it were, the superhuman strength and the speed and the agility and the immaturity. I don't know if you've been in the fight before, but there's usually not this much talking. And of the wall crawler, they know that is exactly how he is. It is, that was a joy to see.
Have any of you watched this really old film where they had these walkers and you wrap the thing around the... Okay, we hate you, Nugget.
The fact that they have Spider-Man as someone who is not only that much younger, but given, if you like, the scheduling of the MCU films, when you had You had Iron Man, you had the Incredible Hulk, and then you got the likes of Captain America, and you got Thor, and then you get Spider-Man further down the line as a guest in what is ultimately a Captain America film. You then see not only a younger character, but a younger character who has entered this universe that much later, surrounded by more experienced adults.
Yeah.
Regardless of the superhuman power that he has, which could arguably best most of them, if not all of them. Again, that's another conversation. But to see him for all of maybe 15, 20 minutes in the MCU, and to see them get so much of it right was a joy to see. Really, it was.
Yeah, I recently watched Homecoming with my kids, and we love that film. It's a great Spider-Man film, but I think what I love about it so much is the Vulture.
Oh God!
And who's creepy in the suit, but when he's the the man behind the suit, played by
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Oh, in the kitchen.
So
in the car.
it's far more creepier because it feels so much more relatable.
Yeah,
it's not just the kid meeting the his potential girlfriend's dad. It's also the layer of, oh, you are the Vulture, and he's like playing with that knife, and it just sends chills down your spine.
And in the car where he said, "I just want to have a quick word with Peter."
Yeah. And the fact, and like also what's great about it, you sympathise with Michael Keaton's character.
Yeah, he's honourable as well. He doesn't give him away at the end, does he?
That last scene, yeah.
And also like what happened to him at the start when he's kind of like when damage controlling come in and said, "We're taking over your contract." And my kid's going to go, well, no, I can't. I've just invested money in this contract. You can't just take it from me. And said, too late, we are. And I thought, ooh, I can relate to that. Yeah, I'd feel pretty pissed off that as well. And I think that's why it's a really good film for me. But yeah, I mean, what was your take on it?
Well, to be fair, I didn't rate it too high.
That's fair.
It's fair enough, each to their own.
Yeah.
But one of the criticisms I have of Homecoming, and the same goes against the Incredible Hulk, as much as there was much in that film I liked, I never understood why you would want to keep the look of the hero the same as the source material, but why you would have such a radical departure for the villain, because they are equally iconic. Again, bearing in mind the source material in the character of Adrian Toomes, who is the Vulture.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen is not. I mean, there are costumes in the source material that wouldn't necessarily work in a live action film, especially given that the source material is maybe some 40 or at least 50 years old, or at least there. Take the Falcon, for example. Now, in the comics, his was, let's just say, a little more outlandish, maybe a little more village people.
But 70s, wasn't it?
Exactly. But the way that the costume looks now, it is functional. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I cannot see with the Vulture why such a radical departure for the costume would have been a consideration. The same way that I cannot see them to have Iron Man feature so heavily in the mix of that film would have been a consideration. What I would have thought, given, if you like, the scope of Spider-Man's superhuman ability, again, his strength, his speed, his durability, let's not forget his spider sense, which alerts him to danger and precognitive, all that good stuff. So to start him off against a relatively tame and easy villain who is ruthless would have given the wall crawler's character a chance to develop. And it would have also focused on how really ruthless the Vulture is. The fact that such opportunity was lost in the film was one of the things I didn't like about it.
It's disappointing for you.
Yeah, I can't help but think that with the Spider-Man films, especially, the bits that we enjoyed were kind of in spite of there being so many clashes between the two studios and that tug of war, because it was very much Sony wanted to do things their way. Marvel needed it to work with what they'd already done, and they already had that huge long tail for it, and it ended up being a compromise, which is carried very well by some good writing and great performances. But as you said, for someone who is, if you're really attached to the source material, there are places where they have quite frequently said it's, they've done closer to the Ultimate Universe than the classic universe, but they've been picking and choosing. They've just, in the same way as Star Wars have done, and Matt's going to start off now, but slightly more successfully.
Yeah,
I'll not go into that. Yeah. I'll not open up that can of worms.
Well, did you ever watch the Spider-Man cartoon from the 80s? Spider-Man and Friends, which had this character called the Swarm. That character chills me to this day. I don't know what it is about the Swarm, but he just really kind of just sends shivers down my spine.
I always thought that was a little freakish, not so much the character of the Swarm, but I think at some point, with whatever power he had, he was creating like insect zombies, and people had the bug-eyed look, and they had and I thought, now this is some freakish shit. that is what really got to me.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful you mentioned Spider-Man, his amazing friends, because for all the various iterations of the character that I have seen and all the comics I have, several hundred original issue, one of my favorite fights is in that cartoon. Oh. Do you remember the one which is Attack of the Arachnoid, where this scientist, Zoltan Amadeus, needed money to fund his research. So he created a serum that gave him Spider-Man's powers, but it didn't stay stable. This is the one with the scorpion in it. Okay. And so Spider-Man is arrested for Zoltan's crimes. But what then happens is, with his web shooters taken away, Spidey is in prison, but he's in a cell next to the scorpion. And the scorpion breaks through into his cell and they have a fight. Because Spidey doesn't have his web shooters, he's trying to stay alive, the scorpion's coming after him. So you see him at the beginning of the scene, he's pacing around the cell. You know, when people are pacing, they walk up and down. He's the wall crawler, so he just walks around in a circle. And the wall blows in, and the scorpion storms in, and the tail lashes up behind him. It's the least of your worries, Spider-Man. And you just know it's about to kick off. I love that fight. Always have done. Last time I watched it was probably a few months ago. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, what did you? I think quite a few people kind of pick up on the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film. What was your take on it?
The which one?
Into the Spider-Verse.
The animated one.
I
really enjoyed that, I must admit.
The thing is, I suppose, and I hold up my hand and say, maybe I am something of a purist. I was not. I thought it was okay. I saw the film when it came out, but having seen it a few times since then, it has grown on me. There are elements of the film that I can really get behind, like Miles' arc when after the slobbish Peter has webbed him up and left him, and he remembers the words. It's just a leap of faith, and he takes that leap of faith, and you see him comfortable in his powers. So when he starts to swing through the city, you realize that he now realizes, I can do this, I will do this, I'm going to do this. The web swing when they're getting away from Doc Ock, and they've got this big chunk of hi-fi between them, and whip it out, and there are moments like that which are just beautiful. So the more I watch it, and the more I see the chemistry between the characters, and I watch the nuances in the arc. It's yeah. I suppose I was maybe resistant at first, but yeah, I can see the film for what it is. It's a very, very solid effort at just that, creating the Spider-Verse. So yeah, pleasant surprised by that.
Which they're going to bring into live action with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and obviously Tom Holland in the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I still wish we'd had that that rumored Deadpool credit sequence they were going to do, where you had all the actors hiding out in Deadpool's flat, hiding from Sony. Have you never heard about that? He wanted to do an end credit sequence for the next Deadpool film, where he came out where he comes into the flat, and you've got like Andrew Garfield sitting on the sofa eating cereal, and then Tobey Maguire comes wandering through, and in his boxer shorts and a pair of socks and a t-shirt and like sort of hey, and then it's like this whole idea that they're in the Sony protection program, so they can't hunt them down and finish them off.
Well, one thing I really liked about Into Spider-Verse was just like the sense of motion the animation brought to the film. Because I don't think none of the films ever really captured that sense of swinging down and up. That sense of motion.
One or two shots in the early Sam Raimi. They did have a couple of really good shots that they never really followed up on, which did have that rush. I think it was more if you watched it on the big screen. With those ones, I was quite lucky. I ended up in that sweet spot for a couple of the early films where everything's just in the right place and the screen's all around you, but you're just low enough that you get a bit of vertigo when they do things like those big dropping shots, and you feel the rush of them swinging.
Yeah. The end of the first Spider-Man film with directed by Sam Raimi.
Oh yeah, that.
Where Peter Parker's walking away from Mary Jane in the graveyard, the final swing, and with Danny Elfman's score, and I believe this is what I forget what he did, but one of the production team by the name of John Dykstra had something that they call the Dykstra cam, which is basically a camera on a cable or a rig that they can hike up or just drop down how many stories as quick as they like. And then they put the character of Spider-Man on the surface of that, as it were. So the final swing at the end of the Spider-Man film, you see him swing down to street level. He swings alongside cabs, and he swings up. He runs off the side of a building, and the camera pans around him. You see the sun behind him.
Oh God, yeah.
And it ends up with him swinging up to a flagpole, and he drops on the side. It's just it is straight from the source material.
Yeah.
One of the things I like from the Raimi franchise, how they captured the swing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Raimi's got that. Raimi's really good for doing that kind of point of view camera shots, and those really kind of, I wouldn't say weird, but the really kind of unique shots that Raimi's famous for. If you ever watch any of his films, he's kind of got the really kind of unique directorial style.
It is you're right. It's in terms of the visual interpretation.
Yeah.
Like even for the trailer for the second film, the teaser trailer starts with the two of them, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, in the diner. Do you love me or not? And she says, kiss me. And she leans in and
with the car, wasn't it?
Goes off with the car coming up behind him. And the only thing that's missing is the squiggly lines of spider sense around him. If you were to put that panel into a comic, that's what you would see. The eyes wide, and you can imagine him saying, "Spider sense incoming," and the car's coming up behind him. And even the way the rest of the teaser is laid out. So when he is near the end of the trailer, he's swinging through the canyons of New York, and the camera pans back until it's in Ock's eye lens, and Ock, it pans back from him, and he turns and he climbs up the face of the clock.
Yeah.
All of that visual narrative, that's what you would expect from Raimi. He has that sense of flair, drama, however you want to describe it.
Emotion, almost. Emotion.
Yes. The hospital scene in Spider-Man 2 is a classic example.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting about that was apparently this was in the early stages of filming because they decided they're going to use practical effects for the tentacles. In some instances they might need to resort to CGI, but they very much wanted the practical, realistic look. So the hospital scene, as I understand it, was a tryout to see how the tentacles would look if they were not done by CGI. And the scene was that effective. It was just that mind-blowing. They said, we're keeping it. And you can see from, again, his visual sense that the hospital staff don't realize something is going wrong, and then one of the tentacles attacks one of the nurses, and then someone else screams, and then the tentacles come to life, and they're chasing people through the dark. And that kind of visual sense, even when it goes up close into somebody's eye, like that kind of that's Raimi right there. It's I wouldn't have thought that it could look so effective, but it does.
Yeah, I must say I do like Spider-Man 2 just for the Dr. Octopus and the tentacles and how just basically it's just the visual flair of that Raimi brings that film.
Definitely.
There was an amazing.
I really liking that, which is so small and simple, and again it pays homage to the source material. Is after Peter has had a shitty day, he's lost his powers and Ox got away and he's losing his eyesight and he throws the paper away. Doc is starting to build his machine, but he's got his goggles on. He reaches for a cigar with one tentacle and he lights it with the other one. And that's just a classic Ock pose.
Yeah.
Him with the goggles and the cigar. It's just fucking great.
Apparently, he's coming back in the live action multiverse now.
Alfred Murray has been confirmed, hasn't he?
I'd seen along with the memes that Kevin Feige was going to tear him a new one because Melina was supposed to keep shit under wraps. I don't know how true that is, but to see that doing the rounds, always the way with memes, you'll find one or two which are just hilarious. Or knock, or I'll be back, or whatever the case.
Okay. No, carry on, Pete. Yeah.
And look, have you been watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet, by the way.
Okay.
So just.
I will say it's very good. Well worth watching.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. I'm not blessed enough to have Disney or Disney Plus, whatever it is, but from people who have seen it and they tell me, well, have you seen this? Have you seen that? I hear good things about that.
Okay. I enjoyed it. I'm going to be controversial and say it's even better for me, it's even better than WandaVision because it's exploring the ramifications of the snap by Thanos and also the legacy of the Shield and what it means for Sam Wilson, to be given it. And it's just it's a really well done story exploring the ramifications of what all this all means for the greater world. And it's it builds up and really well worth watching.
I think it's very interesting, but the contrast you draw to WandaVision is weird because WandaVision was
WandaVision was very personal.
Yeah, it was. It's a very for all that it has so many people in it as it does. It is very much focused on the one person.
Wanda.
Whereas Captain and Falcon and Winter Soldier, while it does have the two leads, it's more using them as a lens to look at the world rather than looking at them as much.
Absolutely, yeah. Also they are tonally and genre-wise quite different. WandaVision is a character study. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a spy thriller,
Oh
essentially.
god, yeah.
Much like Captain America: Winter Soldier, was essentially, it wasn't a superhero film; it was a spy thriller.
Oh god,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so basically, what I've heard recently as well is Captain America 4 is going to be written by the same team
Yeah.
behind the Falcon and Winter Soldier, because they just basically pulled off
Oh god, yeah. They
the
just
Captain
got
America
it.
legacy. Yeah, they pulled off what the legacy means of Captain America.
But,
How
yeah.
can it be another Captain America film if he's all old and retired now?
Then you
Because
can watch the TV series, don't you?
Well,
Sorry?
I know the sort
You
of
need to
kind
watch
of, because
the
I know
series.
they're Captain. I mean, I know Winter Soldier at one point takes up the shield. And I know that Sam, the Falcon, takes
Yeah.
up the shield at some point in time as well.
In the
so-
comics, it's like in the comics, Captain America is more of a title than a character.
Well, it's become, hasn't it? Because they've had a lot
Yeah.
of backwards and forwards. Because in the comics,
He was
he has
assassinated
he's
at one
stepped.
point.
He was assassinated. He's stepped down and been depowered.
Yeah,
Various other things. So they've had a few different versions. Hence, you've had U.S. Agent. You've had the Winter Soldier as Captain America. You've had Falcon as the Winter Soldier, as Captain America. Sorry, as well, with his own sidekick who is Falcon, but a different Falcon, which ties back to some of the casting in the series as well. So there's lots of stuff in there, but it's their way of taking at it. But it also, it's interesting. It looks at PTSD from two different ways as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With two of the lead characters, but it also brings Wakanda into the thing in a way, sort of that first gentle dip into the pool in the post.
snap.
Yeah, in the post snap, also in light of there is no Black Panther anymore in the real world with with the death of the actor and so on.
Chadwick
So,
Boseman.
Yeah, like I lost the name. It's when you can't find the word.
Yes.
So it's interesting. They're looking at, it's a way to look at the characters around him, and sort of give people thinking about it in a way other than just he's gone. It's the fact that they had all those vibrant characters they built around him, and the smaller casts and stuff like that work quite well.
All right. Well, we should maybe carry on talking about your books. We've spent a long time talking about
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
We do. We do that.
I think I warned you, we are very informal and are given to diverse.
Deviation.
But yeah, I mean, what are you working on right now, anyway?
I am working on the next novel. I have done my writing stint for the day. The novel is currently at 37,000 words. I'm running a little behind schedule. I had planned to finish the novel by the end of this month. I think, to be fair, the novel first draft at least should be finished by the end of next month. While there are some inconsistencies and plot holes in there, at this point I don't really care. I just want to get the draft down. At least
It's
that
the
way
first
I've got
draft. It's the first
But-
draft at the end of the day, isn't it?
Exactly. So from the point of view of me always working, the first thing is to get the drafts down. And if you've ever seen the first Deep Blue Sea film, I didn't even realize that there was a franchise when they need to. This is near the end of the film when they send the oxygen tanks to the surface to distract the sharks. This is pretty much how I see the writing process. Finish the draft and get out quick.
Yeah.
So to that end, it's like I was typing with my feet, like, I want to finish the draft and get out quick. It is sloppy with typos. There's going to be words of at least 11 letters and maybe 2 vowels in there. That's how I type. I don't care how shitty it looks. Is it a finished draft? Yes or no? Just one or the other.
Yeah.
So that's what I am currently working on. The novel that I had written toward the end of last year, I think this was. I'm waiting for one other beta reader to give me that draft back. Then I need to get that one cleaned up to give back to the publisher who is already contracted for that one. I have a novella that I'm still waiting for a response on. And I'm already doing the groundwork for my next project, which will most likely be a collection. And actually, it was only this evening, in fact, that I made a new connect to give me a hand with the basic research and the themes and setting the tone of the collection. So yeah, I should have a talk with them tomorrow just to brief them, give them an idea of what I'm about, what I'm looking for. It's not that I would necessarily start now, but my for the stuff that I do, people's lives don't revolve around me, so I'm mindful to book in time as early as possible, as it were.
Yeah.
I probably won't start work on this book until I would guess June, to be realistic. But at the same time, I want to get people up to speed and book in time with them ahead of schedule. So that's what this move is about. And that's just what I have on the go for the moment.
You are an absolute machine, sir.
Yeah, fucking hell, man.
Oh, man.
I mean, I take it as a compliment, but when I think of the machines, as it were, I think of people very much like Paul Kane. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's right to say that he writes full time, but where some people would have day jobs, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have that kind of obligation. Yes, he's a full-time writer, and as one of the joint heads of the UK chapter of the HWA, the Horror Writers Association, he has certain responsibilities that he and his wife Marie need to look after. But he is very much a machine, whether it is him writing in the vein as horror, whether he is writing crime, he writes under a slightly different name for that. And of course, the HWA admin duties and all that kind of stuff. So when I think of machines, I think of people like him, like Dave Jeffrey he's a machine, and also one of the nicest guys in the indie business. He's someone else I owe another bear hug to, and I don't think I even seen him up close since not 2019, but probably the one before. Which was...
That was Sledgelit you're thinking about, Christmas 2018, the Sledgelit, the Christmas-themed Writers' Festival in Derby.
No. Definitely a FantasyCon, and I can tell you on this was. This was a FantasyCon in Chester. I remember because now thinking back on it, there's a picture with the four of us in. There's me, there is Dave, there is Lisa Childs, as in Ross's sister, Ross Warren, and Peter Mark May. So the four of us in this. I remember now. This was at the FantasyCon in Chester. So this might have been. I could go into Facebook now, but I can't be bothered. I'm guessing this might have been about maybe 3-4 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
The time that I'd most recently seen him, I think, this is why I remember, and I know he remembers it. He was supposed to do a reading on the panel. He was running late. I forget where he came from. And I think I might have had to cover for him, not just to make up some bullshit excuse, just, Dave's on his way here, but this has happened. He said, do X, Y, Z. It was that kind of thing. And he came and did the reading. And as is always the way when you're at these conventions, you want to make time to speak to X person for maybe a few minutes. And then you see Y person, you speak to Y, and then Z is there, and you speak to Z. And it's Z, give me a minute, I need to go back to X. And you look for X, and X is gone. And by the time you went to see X, it's time to go. It's that kind of thing. So I'd seen him briefly the last time. He got away from a bear hug, which is not nice.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying, I think Mark Shodron once said to me, like, 50% of all business is done at conventions, probably in the bar. And it's basically all that networking you do. Oh, got to chat to this person, see that person over there. And as you build up these connections and you get to know people and they get to know you. And then, okay. I think My very first published story, The Sound of Latex, was this comic fantasy tale that I wrote. It's great. Basically, what happens when you put, well, it's all about through Fox Spirit Publishing by Adele.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the theme was like from the first collection they did, Tales of the Nun and Dragon. And the caveat, like you could put any type of genre, be it fantasy, science fiction, horror, it only had to have do a nun and or a dragon. So of course, I thought I'm going to have a latex nun in a fantasy setting going against a dragon. And basically, like exploring what happens, what on a Dragon Quest, how can a knight go up against a dragon with what is basically a toothpick? And so I basically went with it, and I just basically turned to Adele. I could do that, and she went, "Oh yeah, sure, do it. Send me a story and I'll see it." And she published it. It's my type story.
What are you doing with your microphone?
Sorry.
Now that you mention the convention, I will remind you one of my favorite memories of you. This one you all know. You know the one I'm going to say, I'm sure. But we were at an Edgelit, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Dion and Ben. Dion is a freelance editor. He's largely recognizable from his bald head and the biggest, sexiest tash and goatee combo that you could think of. The same way that people recognize the likes of John McCruick because of that distinct look and that facial hair. Dion is one of those people. The other one is a guy by the name of Ben, who writes horror and western and crime. Crime stuff is pretty brilliant. But anyway, I'm sat with these two opposite me there. We're all engaged in convo. I can see the hallway in the background. I see this good man Pete just jogging up in the hallway. And I don't know what it is, but from the look on his face, I can see that Pete is about to start some shit. So me, Leon and Ben walking away, and Pete comes up behind, I think it's
Dion.
I got the picture. I can't even remember. You come up behind either Dion or Ben. I mean,
Dion.
I'm inclined to think it was Dion. And while I've taken a picture, I think this is why you run out, because I was taking a picture. But while I'm talking to the two of them, they're posing for a picture. Pete is behind Dion's head like this. And what I remember is I've got the camera like this. And I'm trying my best not to piss myself laughing. And in the middle of all of it, I took 3 pictures. And I don't know how I managed it, but all of them were straight. It's the progressive thing of Pete in the background, Pete even closer, Pete behind Dion's head, Pete behind Dion's head, Pete behind Dion's head, and then Dion has looked round. You joking?
The Joker, there's Peter Ray Allison.
That's me. Yeah, and well, I from my side, I saw you getting your photo out to take a photo of Dion and Ben, and I thought, this is too good a chance to miss. So I just legged it over, and just Dion was completely oblivious. I was going, and got some great photos. I mean, why he doesn't use them on his website full frontal, I do not know. It's it's a crime against humanity.
Oh dear, oh dear.
The other picture I've seen of Dion, which is really disturbing, and I'm sure you must have seen this one by now. It is a picture of him and Phil Sloman, but their heads are their faces are superimposed on a couple of, if you like, Neanderthal cave people. But they're both stripped to the waist as cave people might be, like a grass skirt. And one of them has drooping female breasts, and I think and to look at this picture of whoever it was with breasts. Something about that picture just really disturbing.
Yeah, I'm disturbed already. I don't even know the picture. Droopy Neanderthal boobs are generally a sort of a bad thing in general.
There are some things you just can't unsee.
I mean, one thing we want to ask was like, I know some writers have kind of a love-hate relationship with convention, or some writers just do not like them. They'll go to them, but it's kind of more of a necessity or duty than anything else. I mean, for me, it's more of I like doing the business. I like going there and meeting people because I'm a freelance journalist, so I generally just do my business at the desk. So it's for me to go out and see fellow writers and journalists and just get to speak to people. I mean, what's your take on conventions as a whole?
I mean, for me, it is pretty much a necessary evil. I'm not going to say it's necessary for everybody, but in terms of not only promoting myself but promoting my craft, it is very much a necessary evil. And it's as you said before, it is a good way to meet people. I mean, I was in a collection that Steve Shaw brought out. I think it was last year. The Great British Horror Volume 5 from Blackshot Books.
Oh, nice.
And so the way that came about, that discussion, was this would have been not last year, so convention before. I think this was the one in Clydesdale, which for me felt like the arse end of nowhere. I'm sure it's a very nice place, but it really was a hop, skip, and a jump in the mission to get there. So I think it was one morning or one afternoon, I'm in the bar with, I think Stuart Hotston might have been there, which is noteworthy because he's in the collection as well. But I think it was me, Steve, Stuart, and Rio Ewers. But at some point when I think the other two had gone up, Steve then turns to me and says, "I've never invited you into this collection, have I?" "No." "Do you want to be in the next one?" "Yeah, sure, why not?" And as involved as that. And he says, "All right, fine, at some point in the near future, I will hash out basic terms and we'll go on from there." And that was it. So, you're right when you say that some business is done in the bar. This is one of the things I like about conventions. For me, it's not only a way to meet people, but in addition to like finding businesses, or finding opportunities, it is beyond that, and more importantly, it's a chance to connect with the like-minded. Not everyone in the genre has the same approach that you do. Not everyone has the same artistic sensibilities that you do. Not everyone has the same level of drive as you do. But for my part, it is, regardless of marquee value or perceived marquee value, as in, "Oh, you must be big, yeah, you must be you're famous." There was someone that I'd met on holiday a couple of years or so ago, who seemed somewhat, let's say, miffed. It wasn't anything major, but in the nicest way possible, just miffed, as in, I didn't realize you were famous or some such, and maybe I should have got into some more conversation and still speak to her. But regardless of what your marquee value is or is perceived to be, I'm very much of the mind that regardless, I come with professional intent. I'm sure there are some people who, when they write, it's okay, well, I'll write something now, and if it's rejected by a publisher, then okay, I'll leave it for a while, and then I'll try and send it to someone else, or I'll try and write another one. And I don't knock those people for their approach, because that's their approach if that's what they're comfortable with. But I am very much of the mind that when I write, in an ideal scenario, my audience is going to love my work. If they love my work, then they're going to want more. What takes me, say, maybe 3 months to write, they would ideally read in a fraction of the time. So I need to keep writing to keep up. The more work that I produce and the more work that I keep moving in terms of I'm writing something, I've got something sent out to a publisher, I am currently engaging in edits with this particular publisher, the more work I keep moving, the more business I generate, the more business I'm likely to generate. So yeah, I definitely keep that shit moving.
Do you ever get writer's block? Do you ever get to a point where you're just literally, I can't do this, I need to stop for a minute?
I really don't, and this is one of the things that I am not only grateful for, but this actually informs how I write, because the muse, as I often refer to her, the same way that Dexter Morgan from Dexter has his dark passenger, I have the muse, who is, if you like, the dark angel on my shoulder, who is adamant that I write and I keep delivering the goods. And every so often on the likes of Twitter, there is a meme where it is Fairuza Balk from The Craft when she goes, I'll kill you, I'll kill you, I'll kill you. And that's how my muse reacts to me if I've not written for a while.
Okay.
The muse, whatever form she takes, is for the most part very good to me, in that I nearly always have those ideas and I'm just writing to keep up, to be honest. It used to be a thing before the advent of smartphones that whenever I had an idea for a story, I'd have to scribble it down on the back of a receipt. I think maybe once I've used the steam in the bathroom mirror. Not like I ran the hot water taps and waited for steam, but it's, I've got the gist of the elevator pitch, or maybe just the phrase or a couple of words that brings to mind what the story will be about, and just write it somewhere, write it anywhere. When people renew their phone contracts and they get a new handset, they might do away with the handset. I actually have my old handsets because the Notepad app on the phone has all those elevator pitches and ideas for stories where, again, as soon as I get the idea, I make a note of it. Some ideas speak to me more than others. Even for the ideas that I actually end up writing the story, they don't necessarily speak to me the way that I thought they would when they were in my head before they hit the page. But I know a lot of people who write may have a thing about writer's block. The words won't come. If the words come, they won't come correct. But regardless, I've never been one of those, as in I have writer's block. Even if the words won't come as smoothly as I would like, the words still hit the page. But it's not open for debate.
Yeah.
Good
yeah,
discipline.
I found that, sometimes just a case of writing. It doesn't have to be writing what you want to be writing. Just sometimes just writing down something, anything, something else entirely will obviously just give you a chance for your left-hand brain to kind of take a break while you're just writing something out, then switch back over and see about what's going on and see if that's kind of kickstarted anything. I mean, sometimes like when I'm like, I've got emails on the go, I've got articles on the go, I'm pitching out to some, revising another, writing a third, and it's all about kind of, well, okay, if I'm not in the mood for that, I'll do something else, and just kind of keep them all level and keep moving with all of them. Yeah, but okay, so it's like balancing it all out, really.
It is, and it comes back to something that you've just mentioned. When I write, yes, I might have more than one idea at a time, but I can only write one thing at a time.
Yeah.
For the people who can work on this novella and then this short story and then this short story as well, and maybe this novel, that level of multitasking is simply beyond me. Something I can't / won't do. For me, it is enough of a struggle just to write. But the bottom line is, it for me, it's the writing. The writing is what makes all of it possible.
Cool. Right. I think we're gonna have to leave it here because I've got to get an early night. I've got IKEA are turning up for my new house tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, so I've got to get up stupidly early. And my girlfriend isn't letting me off with. I apparently have to make with the 2 hours before I start work. I've got to make flat pack. So I've literally spent my last 2 weeks making flat packs, putting up shelves, making more flat packs. And yeah, it's going to be a horrible, horrible, horrible day tomorrow. I know it. Flat pack followed by work. Before we go, is there anything? Is there any websites or anything you've got going, or you're sort of what you want to tell people about?
Yes. So I suppose my website is www.ccadams.com. I have recently finished a stint of Q&As called Game Talk, which is how people do what they do. So that has finished the beginning of this month. All the Game Talk Q&As are on there. I will be back in control of my journal from next month. The website, again, ccadams.com. On Facebook is facebook.com/Mr. Adams Writes. On Twitter, it's similar as well, twitter.com/Mr. Adams Writes. And yeah, I'm always happy to hear from those who like horror, whether it's those who read the books or watch the TV shows or watch the films, regardless of the fact that I currently only read the books. And even now, I can't read the books too often because I would like and all the rest of it. I'm always open to that kind of talk around the horror narratives. It is, yeah, I love them. It's that level of villainy that you wouldn't get in the likes of the Lion King or Cinderella, which is it. I mean, let's be fair. Scar killed his brother. That's some dark shit.
Yeah, it is pretty dark.
But the horror film can take that villainy to a more insidious level. That's all there is to it. So yeah, for the connoisseurs of the genre and those who are the avid fans, as it were, by all means hit me up and engage in conversation. It is always good to talk with the other fans, which is what I am. I just happen to be an author as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, CC. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us your time tonight. It's been great. For tonight, I've been Matt Geary. With me has been Peter Raelson.
Good night, everyone, and take care of each other.
Mark Canty.
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
And our guest, CC Adams.
Thanks, people. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.